This is a torture reserved exclusively for German soldiers. A deserter stands shackled, chains locked around both ankles. The other end of the chains is bolted deep into solid rock. His comrades left him with only a handful of bullets and scarce rations. His orders: hold the line and slow down the Soviet advance. The moment his unit moved out of sight, he grabbed his sniper rifle and started loading. But by the time he raised it to aim, his fellow soldiers had already vanished into the wilderness. Breaking free from the shackles was his one and only priority. In a panic, he raised his sniper rifle and fired directly at the chain. But the links were made of hardened steel, thin, tough, and unbreakable. He had to find another way out. He dug through his pack and pulled out a pair of glasses. An idea hit him. Using his knife, he carefully pried out both lenses. He pressed the two lenses together face to face. Then he snapped off a small pine branch and scraped it with his blade. He chewed the pine resin until it turned soft and sticky. He applied it along the edges of the lenses to seal them in place. Then he snapped off a thin pine twig and filled the gap between the lenses with water. A makeshift magnifying lens, built from scratch. He laid moss over the iron spike and used the lens to focus sunlight onto it. Before long, the moss caught fire. He quickly gathered dead branches and fed the flame, building it up. Once the branches burned out, he immediately doused the spike with cold water. The rapid shift between heat and cold slightly loosened the spike, but it still wouldn't budge. Even so, he refused to give up. He repeated the cycle: burn, then drench with cold water, over and over again. Slowly, the hole around the spike in the rock began to widen. A few more rounds, and he'd be able to pull the spike free and break loose. By midday, the soldier crouched by the rock, eating canned food to keep himself going. Suddenly, the distant rumble of an engine cut through the silence. He instantly grabbed his sniper rifle and went still. A Soviet military truck rolled past nearby. By sheer luck, they didn't spot him. He knew he had to move faster, and to make things worse, he was almost out of dry branches. If he couldn't escape soon, even without being caught by the Soviets, the brutal cold would finish him off. On top of that, his food supply was nearly gone. The bucket held only one last cup of water. This was his final shot. He poured cold water into the cracks around the spike and hammered at the surrounding rock with everything he had. Then he emptied every bullet from his rifle. He collected all the gunpowder he could find. He poured it into the hole in the rock, packed mud over the opening to seal it, then tossed in a burning piece of moss. He sprinted behind a large boulder. The powder went off with a boom. White smoke billowed everywhere. He rushed over to check, but the spike hadn't moved an inch. Desperate and furious, he kicked the spike hard. Twice. Nothing. Then he unhooked his rifle sling, looped it around a distant rock for leverage, and used both hands to heft the boulder. He slammed it down onto the spike again and again. After a long, brutal beating, his hands were covered in blisters, raw and bleeding. He poured every last drop of strength into one final strike. The spike finally started to give. He grabbed it and yanked with everything he had. The spike pulled free. He was finally free.